All right. Hello. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about, should you use LegalZoom for your trademark? There are some crazy things out there. And I get like LegalZoom has its place, but it doesn't do what it's supposed to. So we're going to talk about those issues because it's important that as a consumer of legal services that you're educated. That's what these videos are about, is educating you on things legal, but also consuming legal from whether it be attorneys, whether it be online legal services. In fact, we're going to do a more broad video, I believe it's tomorrow, about online legal services in general. So make sure you tune in. I go live Monday through Friday, except for holidays. Today's kind of one of those holidays. It's March 17th, St. Patty's Day, that I am going live because it's not a federal holiday or anything like that. It's a fun holiday. But I go live at 11, Monday through Friday, Pacific Standard Time. So tune in, get your questions answered. I'd love to have you join me. So let's get started, shall we? So before we get into trademarks in regards to LegalZoom and whether you should or should not use LegalZoom for it, let's talk just very briefly about what a trademark is. A trademark is exclusive use of a name, a logo, some sort of identifying mark, something that allows you to protect that brand. Think Nike, think Reebok, Adidas. I mean, I know I'm naming like sports things, but it doesn't have to be Apple, IBM. Those are all trademarked or trademarkable names, mainly because they're not descriptive. But it gives you as the consumer a value because that property, it then becomes yours, like Louis Vuitton, right? The LV logo, okay? All of these things are protected by federal trademark law. And so you can keep people from using it, right? Your name has a value. And that's what a trademark is about, is preserving that value that you have. A knockoff of Louis Vuitton doesn't have the same value. And so they'll sell them at a cost, but at the same time, they also typically don't have the same quality of a knockoff or of a Louis Vuitton bag or any type of product that's a knockoff of another product, right? So the trademark is what gives you that protection and allows you to, if necessary, sue and to enjoin people from using it. So it's really about building your brand as an entity, right? Like, so it doesn't mean that, like, for instance, just because you own your trademark doesn't mean you own your domain name. Now, that's a whole different, we've talked about that before. I don't want you to think that it's the same thing. They're not. So when we talk about trademarks, it is a big deal. It is an important part of your business because it can add, I should say, it doesn't absolutely, but it can add substantial value to your business if you do it correctly. And that's where LegalZoom comes in. Should you use them? I'm not going to tell you the yes or no on this one because that's too easy of an answer. And in law, yes or no is very rarely an accurate answer. So let's get started. The United States Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO is for short, is what is the governing body that reviews trademarks and gives you the exclusive rights to it. They fundamentally weed out people that submit applications that have these main issues to them, okay? Their goal, because it's a use of exclusivity, so the first thing that they do is they exclude. So the most common reasons for denial are not distinctive enough, okay, a similar mark, or you submitted the wrong information. Those are the top reasons why things get denied. Okay, those are the number ones. So it's important that you're talking these things over with an attorney. And because LegalZoom cannot give legal advice, all they do is file the information for you. So the old adage in computers is garbage in, garbage out, right? If you submit incorrect things, or if you submit a trademark that isn't distinctive enough, or has similar trademarks to them, or similar marks to them, then you're going to end up with that problem. It's a big problem, because then you can get it denied, and it can get expensive quick, right? Because if you just keep submitting applications of getting denied, not only is that costly for no reason, but it takes a lot of time. To give you context, most trademarks take about 6 months at the very minimum. Okay, that's the minimum time period. I've had trademarks take a year, just because of things that happen with it. The reviewing attorney gets busy. They have tons of trademarks that they're working on. So all of these things affect your trademark. So it's important that you sit down and you choose a trademark that is distinctive enough that you don't have to worry about it getting denied. Now, LegalZoom can't do that. LegalZoom, literally, all it can do is process paperwork. And that's just, anybody can do that. A monkey can process paperwork. LegalZoom purports and tells you that it's doing something, but it doesn't mean they're actually doing it. So they can't review your trademark to your proposed trademark to see if it's a good one, right? So that's number one. So each application costs. So if it gets denied, or you have to, if you abandon it because you don't keep going with it, then you have to start all over again, okay? Like I said, that can get expensive quick. If you're doing it wrong, if you're going in the wrong direction, each time you go in the wrong direction, it takes more time and costs more money. And did I mention that it takes a minimum of 6 months? So if you do it wrong and then you get it denied, or you have to abandon it, then that's 6 months that you could have been not having to deal with, right? So that's number 3. LegalZoom also, they only do a basic trademark search for identical marks. They don't do the exhaustive search where we scour through the web, we scour through the database to make sure that your mark is distinctive. Okay, so in other words, you're getting a very basic price and you're paying for it. That's the problem, right? Not only are you paying your filing fee, but you're also paying LegalZoom to do this for you. And let's face it, you could do that yourself. The database is online. The T's database is right there. Almost anybody can sit there and go through that. This is not a difficult thing. But a trademark attorney will sit and go through the database and look for similar marks with similar names, and they'll do searches all over the place to make sure that your mark is distinctive enough that it won't get denied because of that. Lots of LegalZoom misses stuff. I've had clients before when they came to me for a trademark where they had paid LegalZoom to do it before, and LegalZoom had sat on it for 6 months before they'd even submitted it. And guess what? Or not, they hadn't even submitted it after 6 months. They're like, what? So they paid LegalZoom for nothing, literally nothing. And I don't know if LegalZoom gave them their money back. And that isn't the first time that's happened. I've had lots of clients that have had problems with LegalZoom, and that's where they come to me because I stand behind my work. If I make a mistake, it's on me. I would never let something sit for 6 months, least of all a trademark application, knowing full well that it takes at least 6 months to get stuff. It takes 30 days to get the assigned attorney, okay? So you're looking at 3 months anyway to get that attorney to review it. So you just screwed over LegalZoom screwed over their people for 3 months at a minimum of 6 months. So you're looking at 9 months at the minimum. That's a long time in business. A lot can happen between those things. So it's very important that you're thinking about these things when you're using LegalZoom. Purports to do this, but in the reality, they don't. And that's a problem, especially when you're doing something as important as protecting your brand. The next thing, and this is probably the biggest reason why you, and if you haven't figured it out by now, why you should not use LegalZoom. If you get an office action, which is basically the reviewing attorney has an issue with your trademark, okay, whatever it may be, LegalZoom can't help you. That's practicing law. They literally cannot do anything to give you the help that you need. You have to either figure it out on your own, or then you have to hire an attorney. Well, what the heck? I can't imagine paying someone to do a service and then getting halfway through it, something happens because they can't give you advice, and now all of a sudden you're the one having to pay it, right? You're the one having to come. So many people are penny wise and pound foolish. They're trying to save a penny. I'm not saying that that's not a good plan, and there's lots of areas in business where you can save money. Absolutely. Do your best to save money when you can save money. But you have to know when it's time to spend money. And legal and accounting are the top two places where you should be spending your money to make sure you're protected, to make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to do, because those are the ones that are going to get you in trouble the most. Because you can spend a few dollars and then spend a lot of money if you get it wrong, versus you can spend more money at the beginning and then not get it wrong and not spend more money later. So it really comes down to, where do you want to spend your money and time? Because if you screwed up on your own, not only do you only have yourself to blame, but then like when we fix problems, it's a lot more expensive to fix a problem than it is to just have done it right in the first place. Okay. So and by the way, just so you know, 80% of all trademarks get an office action. So you're more likely than not going to get an office action. And LegalZoom literally cannot help you. And if you haven't engaged an attorney at that point, they may not be able to help you either, because depending on the office action, there's just nothing you can do about it. And we could have prevented that from happening. In law and in life, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Okay? You can spend that money in the preventative thing so that you get the right trademark, or you can spend more money later trying to fix it, or maybe not even be able to fix it at all, only because you were trying to go super duper cheap. And I get it. You're like, I want this, I don't have the money for it, and I totally understand that. But then it's time to reevaluate. Like, where are you putting your money, right? Where are you spending your money at? If you're not spending it on the important things, then what are you doing, right? There's certain things you can get away with that are free and cheap, but legal and accounting are not one of them. I'm sorry, those are just truths, okay? The other thing is, with an office action, a lot of people abandon their office actions. They abandon their trademark after that point because they don't know what to do. And then they pick it up later and then they realize, oops, right? And you spend all that money and it's gone. Like, that application fee does not get refunded to you if you abandon it or if it's denied. So depending on the application, depending on the one that you use, it can be anywhere between, I think it's $225 right now. I think it might have gone up recently. I haven't looked at it in the last week. So, but I mean, so that's $225 you're not going to get back. So keep that in mind. These are all things that you've got to know about when it comes to dealing with trademarks, especially if you're going to try to deal with them on your own. All right. Oh, by the way, and this is, I should say this should go without saying, but that's why I have notes over here to remind me. If you get an office action and an attorney is assisting you, whether that be me or some of my colleagues, which I have friends that do trademarks as well. If I'm not the right fit for you, that's fine. But they will work on the office action for you. So you're more likely to get it through just by hiring that attorney. So again, what does it come back to? Where do you spend your money? Where do you spend that time? I'm not suggesting it comes cheap. I'm simply saying, where is it worth it? And here's the key, and this is my final thought on whether or not you should use LegalZoom for this. You get what you pay for. A trademark is an investment in your business. Intellectual property has value. And if you do it right, you can reap that value. Nike, Reebok, Adidas, Apple, IBM, so many of these companies that have had their trademarks for years and years and years have reaped substantial benefits from that. It's a wise investment. It's on the balance sheet. It has value. It isn't something that, like a lot of things you invest in business, may not have a return. It may not have an immediate value. But like, I'll tell you something, if you go to sell your business, your intellectual property has a lot more value than you might think it does at the beginning, right? Because now you've built a brand, which is easier to transfer, that's easier to deal with, because it's not surrounded your name typically. I mean, there's exceptions, obviously. Donna Karan, Louis Vuitton, Ralph Lauren, those types of things. Yes, their names are in that. But for the most part, Hugo Boss, there we go, there's another good one. But the most part, Nike, Adidas, look at the value of those companies relatively. The more brand you have, the more on-point brand you have, like Nike and Adidas and Apple and all those, the more value you have. There's actual value there that can be said that you don't get as a company without a trademark or without a brand. So I would encourage you, when you're evaluating options, which I understand, again, I want to reiterate, I do understand that money is money, and sometimes you just don't have it. This is one of those ones that you don't want to scrimp on. This is one of those ones that if you need to borrow, you borrow for. I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying, like, do it right so that you don't have to do it again, or that you don't have to keep trying at it and making that mistake and that expense that goes with it. So that's it. So should you use LegalZoom for your trademark? The answer is no. Generally speaking, you should not. Unless you're well-versed, unless you want to deal with the headaches that go with it. LegalZoom, all they're literally doing is filling out the paperwork. They're doing a basic search. In a nutshell, they're not doing what they're they're doing all that they can do, but what they can do isn't sufficient for most people's needs. So don't be deceived by them. Don't think that it's something that you can just do and, oh, it's good enough. Okay, this isn't one of those areas where good enough is good enough. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me today. If you, like I said, I go live Monday through Friday at 11. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. And have a great one. Enjoy this St. Patty's Day, and we'll talk to you later. Don't forget to hit subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of when I go live. Later.